Welcome to A Lunch with Biggie, a podcast about small business and creatives sharing their stories and inspiring you. My guest today worked on a corporate job as a mechanical engineer. After trying a coworker's kombucha, he started brewing it, and then he was making it for himself, seeing how it benefited others and how he decided he basically wanted to produce it. And he is now producing the cleanest and most intentional kombucha in the Sunshine State. Please welcome the owner of Living Vitalitea, Daniel Koenigkann. Daniel, thank you so much for taking some time and coming to see me and hanging out during my lunch break. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me in your beautiful neighborhood and beautiful home.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. So since it's my lunch break, what's your usual go-to like lunch or sandwich?
So I was thinking about this a lot, and this brings me back to my 20s. It's a bacon, egg, and cheese on a extra toasted everything bagel, toasted with some butter, and then a little bit of cream cheese in it.
Well, I like that. And that's a good one. I got something for you before you leave. Remind me to give you something before you leave, especially since you came out to see me. I actually have a bagel, egg, and cheese enamel pin that I'll make sure that you walk away with that. So let's talk a little bit about how this all kind of started. Obviously, in my intro, I brought up that you were a mechanical engineer. I know you were working in the medical field. And I brought up the whole topic of like you having sampled it from one of your coworkers. So kind of lead me from there. Like tell me the origin story of how this started in 2013.
Sure. I'm an engineer through and through ever since middle school.
Okay.
My mom put me in pre-engineering middle school, and then I followed up in high school, and then college, went to engineering school. And then after that, I went to engineering job in a corporation. It was Texas Instruments at the time. And I spent about 6.5 years there, and then I got an opportunity to work for a startup company called Secure, and they dealt in the medical industry. So I went from automotive industry to medical industry, and we were developing insulin pumps. It took about 1.5 years or so, and in that time frame, a coworker, he was kind of from California. He was, kind of quirky guy doing his own thing. He brought in his own individual kombucha and had me taste it. And I had no idea what it was, but I'm an experimenter. So I tried it. I said yes and gave it a go. And he's like, do you want to make it at home? And I said, sure. And he brought in a starter culture, a little SCOBY. And I just looked it up on YouTube. I self-learned everything and I started brewing it, and it became a hobby, and I fell in love with it, and it changed my life.
And I know that, so you started noticing the health benefits from drinking it, which is one of the things. And from my understanding, and obviously I'm new to kombucha, so that was another reason why I wanted to bring you in, is because I just kind of wanted to learn from you as well. From my understanding, it's fermented tea, but it's basically it's made from sugar, water, and tea leaves.
That's right.
Is what it's made of. So tell me a little bit about so are you usually the type of person that will go the route of like, hey, I want to kind of just, you like something and then you just start taking it, you start ramping it up? Because from what it sounds like that's kind of how you went the route. You're like, I like this, I'm going to start brewing more of this. And then when you started brewing more of it, was it one of those where you're like, I'm brewing it to sell, or I'm brewing it just so that I can kind of share with others and like how good kombucha is and what it's good for it?
Like I said, I'm an experimenter.
Yeah.
So I like to take, what's presented to me, try it, experiment with it, play around with it. And then if I really like it, I adapt it.
Okay.
I adopt it, and then I adapt it to myself. So that was the origin story. I was kind of in this mentality where my mind was expanding. I was in my late 20s. I was trying different foods. I was giving up a lot of things. I gave up dairy at the time. I even gave up some meats and processed cereals. I was eating cereal all the time, like with milk in the morning, late in my 20s. And I quit all that. And at the same time, that's when kombucha came into my life, and it just accelerated all this detox and weight loss. I ended up losing over 30 pounds.
Wow.
And I got healthier. I got more energy, more vitality in my life, just more clarity of mind. And just felt better. Like I didn't get sick as often, just less inflammation in my body, and I just fell in love with it. And that took about 3 to 6 months, and 6 to 9 months is when I lost all the weight. So
how often are you drinking drinking the kombucha?
These
Is it
days,
like all day, like that's all you drink, or what, like, or is it like once or twice a day? What's the, I guess, recommended amount to drink? If you know,
I think as little as 4 ounces per day is very effective.
really?
Yeah. So I mean, I have it on tap at home, so
Yeah.
it's hard to measure.
Correct.
But I'll drink a glass with dinner or a glass with lunch or breakfast. Sometimes a couple glasses here and there, but you definitely have to drink water with it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So lead me. So now you've experimented, you have adapted. You're kind of now developing. You're kind of like, oh, I'm kind of developing my own flavors, my own things that I like. What was the turning point, like the switch that made you go, I want to try to start like either selling this? Like, were you selling it to friends? Did you start doing farmers markets? What was the intro, like the beginning part of it?
So at the time, I was making it for myself on a weekly basis, about 1 gallon to 2 gallons. And I was just experimenting with all sorts of flavors like berries, anything I could get my hands on, clementines, oranges, berries, and other fruits and peaches and whatnot, anything that was available. I was in Massachusetts, by the way. And so the seasons there are very short.
Yep.
So you get like a lot of, different fruits, you get apples and whatnot. So I was just experimenting for the first few months. And then eventually I was so excited about it. I started, sharing it with my friends, teaching them how to do it. Like I was so excited. I was giving them the mother culture, showing them how to do it real quick, bringing it to their home, like going into their kitchen, be like, this is how you do it. And going to the local store and buying the gallon jugs and just showing them how to brew the tea and how to mix in the sugar, like just how simple it is. And I taught my mom, and she still makes it to the day.
Really?
So it's been 10, 12 years, and she actually inspired a lot of my recipes because she's more of an experimenter.
I was going to say
am.
that I figured you had to get it from somewhere, so that would make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
And then tell me what you brought. You've said it twice now, and I'm just kind of curious. Once again, I'm totally naive to all this. Mother culture. What is that?
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
So kombucha is fermented tea. So it's made with sugar, water, and green tea leaves, or it could be black tea or white tea. It has to be Camellia sinensis, that plant. It's all the same. Green, white, or black is all the same plant. And what you need is just older kombucha to start it. So the mother kombucha is just actually older kombucha that is maybe more vinegary, but basically every time you brew kombucha, you have to save a little bit. I like to use between 10 to 15% of older kombucha to the new batch. And that's what it is. And in the industry, they call it a SCOBY, a symbiotic community of bacteria and yeast. So it is a community. It's a symbiotic community of many, many organisms, many probiotic organisms that are good for digestion, good for detox, lowers inflammation, boosts your immune system.
Yeah, it's great. So then at this point now, you've now started giving it to your friends, now basically becoming like, hey, I'm gonna share the knowledge with all your friends and everything like that. At what point did you start going, like, what was the next one? Because obviously you're still working.
Yep.
You're still a mechanical engineer. So at what point, what was the stepping point where you're like, I want to go, and then we're also still in Massachusetts. So like at this point, like when did you move to Florida? And then when did all these dominoes start falling into a place?
So like I said, my mind was expanding around my late 20s.
Yeah.
And I started realizing some deep things about the medical industry, specifically in diabetes and insulin and all that stuff. And the thing that really was a turning point for me was I sat in a marketing meeting, and they were showing graphs about, the projections of people getting sick over the next 5 to 10 years. And it was just kind of an exponential growth of people with diabetes and all that. And they were so excited about it because this was like an opportunity for profit. And that's when I woke up, I opened my eyes, and I was like, do I want to be part of this profit-making machine, or do I want to be part of the solution? And that's the point where kombucha was like entering my life. And I was researching and discovering all the benefits of it. And I realized, you know what? I'm going to focus on this. And I know that this is something that's actually can help people. There's a lot of accounts of people, claiming a lot of health benefits after drinking it religiously, or maybe even making it themselves. And so I said, this is what I want to do. And within the next 3 to 6 months, I had quit that job, and I was long distance dating somebody in Orlando. So I decided to, shut down my life over there, and I packed up all my things, sold a bunch of things, and I moved down with like one little container of a SCOBY and a mother, and I drove all the way down to Orlando from Massachusetts. It took about a week. We made a bunch of stops, and started brewing it in the kitchen here in Orlando for about six to 9 months, until I eventually decided to, look how to get licensed, how to get permitted, what were all the required steps and everything. And I was still doing it. The first time we did it, that we actually got permitted, was through a commissary kitchen.
Okay.
So that was in 2013. So I intentionally LLC'd my company in January 3rd, 2013. So 1313. And I'm big into like numerology and astrology and all that stuff. So to me, it felt good, and but it still took several months to get actually permitted, to like do all the research to figure out what it takes to get the license and everything. So it wasn't until September of that year, 2013, that I made my first sale to a vegan bakery. That's no longer there, but it was like right on the corner of Mills and 50.
Okay.
Rhapsody.
Okay.
Or Rhapsodic Bakery. Yeah. That was my very first customer, through another person that referenced me in the drum circle community. Because that was the first thing I did, is I looked for a drum circle here in Orlando, and I found a beautiful one through the Florida School of Holistic Living, and at the old Dandelion location.
Okay.
Under the Bodhi tree. It was everything just aligned. So I was bringing my kombucha there for a while, sampling it to everybody, and people in the community, they just encouraged me to, hey, are you gonna sell this? Are you gonna bring it? So I started bringing more and more every month to the drum circles, and that's the genesis of how I turned it commercial.
Okay. That's amazing. One of the things that I know that I've read about was like that you kind of like slowly invested little by little into the business. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, was that one of those where, once again, it was premeditated from the time when you were like started sampling and stuff like that, or starting to like do it yourself and starting to like now talk to other people in Massachusetts? Was that when you started kind of like, hey, I should invest a little bit into this because I think there's something here?
Yeah, so, as an entrepreneur, people look at me and they think, oh, you must have everything figured out, or you must have had a plan. No, I did not have a plan for this at all. I was actually looking at I was doing the math and figuring out how many bottles I'd have to fill to make the same amount of money I was making as an engineer. And I almost quit at that moment. I was like, that's too many, that's too many bottles. I'm not going to sit here and start filling them. But I kept going, and, one thing led to another. I just, through, beautiful contacts and just, following my passion, people referenced me to other locations and word of mouth, and I started growing little by little to the point where I outgrew the commissary kitchen. Yeah. Which, by the way, I was brewing most of it at home because it was way cleaner than the commissary kitchen. Mm-hmm. So around a few months after that, I landed my first location that was my own, but it was shared with a coffee company, a coffee roaster, and they're called Blessed Bean. I'm not sure if they're still around, but they're in Longwood. Okay. And I got about 600 square feet, but they already had a kitchen, which is what I needed. A real commercial kitchen. Yeah, with a 3-bay sink and hot water and all that. And that was like too big of an investment for me at the time. But, I basically, everything I used was like buckets in the beginning. And then after that, I was able to upgrade to like larger kettles, like 100 quart kettles. And then I was still using the buckets for other parts of the process. And then I went to a New Smyrna. I went to a wine store, and I found some wine fermenters, 80 gallons each, 3 of them. And I had just enough money to invest in that. And so then I upgraded to those, and then I started using the kettles for other things, for the starters. So every time that I upgraded, I was still able to repurpose, yeah, like the existing equipment I had. And then refrigeration is a big thing. So I went on Craigslist at the time. I don't even think Facebook Marketplace was that popular back then, but Craigslist, I found, some used fridges and coolers and all this stuff, and I was able to like transport it into my brewery at the time. And I stayed there for about 2 to 3 years, and then eventually we outgrew that, and I found a 1,200 square foot place. I think it was in 2015 or 16. And it was finally like my first very own brewery, 1,200 square feet with a little office in the front, a bathroom. And we just had to do a lot of modifications. We had some problems with the city. We figured it out. And we stayed there for about 3.5 years. And now eventually in 2019, right before they shut down everything, we moved to a 3,200 square foot facility in Orlando.
So there's a few things I want to unpack there. Well, the first part I want to kind of rewind back to is the fact that, and it was one of the first things I think I even asked you when we first started talking when I met you, because and just to give an idea, I met Daniel at one of our Lunch with Biggie, podcast guest Chantal. I was at her podcast premiere, and he was there, and I got to try the kombucha, and that's kind of where I was like, whoa, what is this? I want to know more about this. So that's kind of how I met Daniel. And one of the first things I asked kind of Daniel was the fact that was like, and I wanted him to talk a little bit about it, was he started in 2013. Kombucha, we're currently, in 2023, 10 years later, kombucha is now a normal thing. You go to any supermarket, it's there. 2013, that was not the case. So can we talk a little bit about, because when you're creating a product that is brand new, that there's a lot of knowledge sharing and a lot of you're using a lot of time to not only produce, but you're also now having to share knowledge and kind of teach people what these things are. Can we talk a little bit about some of that, like how the difficulties and some of those things of you having, how, especially now since it's so different, like how difficult it was to try to get that word out and try to get people to be like, hey, no, really, you should try this. This is something that's been, forever. It's something, in that we don't know about it yet.
One of the first places that people go to here in Orlando, we're so blessed with so many farmers markets, is as a small business entrepreneur, you're able to get into a farmer's market and really show your product. So that's what I did in about 2014 or 2015. We started wholesaling right away, but, to places that really knew what kombucha was, which were very few and far between. But when we started doing farmers markets, I was literally explaining to about 90% of the people that came up what kombucha was. Yeah. That was the number one question. What is kombucha? Second one, does it have alcohol? Third, how much sugar is in it? Fourth, what benefits does it have?
Yeah.
So it was about 90%. And it was so unknown here, even in the state of Florida, the regulators didn't know about it. What I had to do to get my permit was actually I had to prove to the process authority, which is something that everybody has to do to get their process approved for food safety, is I had to go to UCF. I knew from my college days that, the library is open and you can download basically any research paper in the world for free. And just to be conservative with my money, I went there. I downloaded about 15 different papers, and I had to summarize. I read them all and summarized everything in a document, a couple pages, and I gave that to the process authority to get it approved. Wow. To say, hey, this is actually safe for consumption. It's an acidic product. The pH is below 4.0, which means it's self preserved. And it is a living product, so it needs to be refrigerated. And with those requirements, I was able to get the permit at the time. Yeah. Nowadays, I'm explaining to about 20% at the farmer's market, of people, what is kombucha and all that. But the questions still remain, how much sugar is in it? We have about 8 grams left of sugar, but it's mostly already metabolized by the product. So it's not the same amount of sugar as it's not 1-to-1 as table sugar.
Got it.
It's actually broken down in glucose and fructose, and most of the glucose is metabolized, so you're just left with the sweetness of the fructose. So it's less than you think, and it doesn't have the same effect as like regular sugar does. The benefits, you know, a lot of people claim that it cures this, it cures that. Kombucha doesn't cure anything. It's actually your own body that cures yourself. But when we're, you know, so full of inflammation or toxins from like, you know, everyday stress or food that we eat, the body can't do that. But kombucha actually detoxes you and reduces inflammation. So it helps your body basically heal itself from many, many different things, like especially chronic diseases. And does it have alcohol? It's got a trace amount of alcohol, under 0.5%, so it's considered non-alcoholic. But it's impossible to get rid of of everything unless you boil it or unless you do something different that's not traditional. Yeah.
What makes your, because I brought it up in the intro and I've seen it in on your site and everything. What makes your kombucha the cleanest? What does that mean?
So yeah, we like to say that we have one of the cleanest kombuchas because we learned the hard way how to make kombucha. I did so much research over the past 8 to 10 years on how to stabilize basically the alcohol and the sugar levels and the consistency and all that. And by the way, it changes with the weather. It changes during the seasons, if it's too humid, if it's too hot. So temperature control is really important. But also cleaning between each batch, you know, and the way that we processed it, that I process and brew the kombucha today is we use very, very fermented starter that's very clarified, almost like if you do like a racking of wine. I don't know if people are familiar with the wine process. There's a lot of settlement, a lot of yeast at the bottom. Same thing with kombucha. So we take from the middle, where it's really clean and it's full of the bacteria and less of the yeast, and we pump that as our starter, and then we let that sit for about 3 weeks as well too, and then once that's done and fermented, we take from the middle again, and that gives us a very clean, consistent kombucha. And we clean very thoroughly between each batch as well too, which a lot of kombucha companies don't know to do, and it doesn't taste the same. You get this like funky, funky taste to it. It's like almost too fermented, puts a lot of people off. So when people try our kombucha, they're like, oh, I didn't know it could taste like this.
That's the part I'm excited about. Originally you started with, and I know like I have some, like you have canned version of this, but originally I'm assuming was it glass is how you started, or how did you kind of start that process of the packaging now what it is? Because you've obviously now, I'm assuming you still don't do that many, most of your business is probably either wholesale or kind of distribution, because you're not doing as many farmers markets type things, because you're in a lot of more locations. I think I saw on your website it's like 45 at least, but there's that's 45 type of places, and over 100 different places have your product. So talk a little bit about like how you've kind of evolved from that, because that's something I'm always intrigued by. When I've talked to other people who have kind of had to scale their business, like, because you've scaled it from going from home brewing to commissary kitchen brewing to now actually brewing it in like large vats, gallons of it. How is that process going through that learning curve of going? I mean, obviously it's a lot of math and a lot, which is works right in your wheelhouse. And when it comes to all those things of adapting and kind of setting up, but I'm kind of curious, like how that transition, because that's a different way of how you're looking, how you're sourcing now material, how you're, there's more costs now. There's like all these different variables now are involved when you go from, home, I'm doing it at home to, I'm kind of doing it in a kitchen to now I'm actually brewing it in like a huge brewery.
Yeah, it's a funny story with that. My initial my initial way of approaching this business was not to do farmers markets, but actually to go straight to wholesale. Yeah. So what I was doing is actually buying these beer bottles, 12-ounce long neck beer bottles, buying the capper, buying the caps, and the labels was actually printing them on a laser printer and then cutting them by hand with like a paper cutter, and then using milk to paste it onto the bottle.
Wow.
Which is a trick because a milk has like this lactose on it that actually, you know, it's a pretty good glue. And it was just paper. So, you know, anytime like I would have to tell people, don't let it sit out for too long because it's going to get condensation and the label's going to fall off. So for about a year, it was messy, but I was doing it by hand, and putting in the ingredients, each individual bottle at a time.
When you mean putting the ingredients, you weren't making like large batch and then kind of just doing like, and actually just pouring like you to make a batch of kombucha and then pour it into each bottle.
So
were you doing it, or were each one is like his own actual?
I would juice ginger and I would put, 2 teaspoons in each bottle by hand. I would count 5 blueberries in each bottle and put them in by hand. And this is, when I was making about 24 to 48 bottles at a time. It was truly a labor of love.
No, I love that. And that's because you wanted to keep the consistency for everyone to have the same consistent taste.
Yeah, the same number of blueberries.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. And then now, obviously, that's not happening now. Like you're not dropping berries into the cans.
No.
But now you're actually canning all the kombucha.
Yeah.
And it comes in how many flavors did you start off with? And then now how many do you have like now? What's like in your SKU? How many SKUs do you have of that?
We had 3 flavors. We had original, we had blueberry, and we had ginger lemon. Now we have over 60 different recipes of flavors.
Wow.
And what we have in cans is 10 flavors. And in kegs, we have way more. We have 20. At any given point, we have about at least 20 to 25 flavors.
Wow.
Now we introduced the flavor of the month scenario where we create a new flavor every month based on what's available seasonally. The next one coming up is a chai masala. So we blend our own spices with cinnamon and some maple syrup, and it's delicious. So we're going with like the fall theme, But to go back to your earlier question about bottling, so we started with glass bottles for a while, and we stuck with it for about 3 or 4 years until I was approached by a customer called Wild Hair in Longwood, and I built out a kegerator for them. And this was like a handmade kegerator with a chest freezer that I turned into a fridge, and I put a wood top on top and then 2 tap towers with double taps. So it was 4 taps with 4 kegs inside. I had everything measured. I had to like make everything fit inside, and that was the first time I offered it on tap. And it was so successful that it generated so much revenue that I was able to reinvest that into, a bigger facility, more kegs, bigger fermenters, and eventually a bigger space to move into.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we do everything. We still use a lot of the process that we used to use, which is handmade, but we do in batches of 10 to 20 kegs at a time, which is 50 to 100 gallons. We ferment 160-gallon fermenters, and we do about 2 to 3 of those, so anywhere between 320 or more gallons per week or every other week. And then we flavor it, and we make concentrations. We still use real ingredients. We still use juiced ginger. We work with local customers. I work with New Moon Market to juice our ginger because they have a huge juicer. I work with a local farm in Vero Beach to get juiced turmeric. And we get that, we freeze it, and then we use a little bit at a time for our batches. We use frozen berries, we use dried herbs, and we make big batches of it. And we do everything, almost everything cold brewed. So even our tea is cold brewed, so we don't introduce too much heat. It simplifies the process quite a bit. It actually makes it even more consistent than before, and everything is real ingredients.
Nice. Have you ever done one, out of curiosity, have you ever done one with elderberry?
Yeah. We have an elderberry flavor with ginger and cinnamon.
Really?
Yep.
I bet that would be pretty, that's like a good, because like I know elderberries, like there's so many great health benefits for it. So that's why I was like, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's done one with elderberry.
Yeah, anti-flu. And actually elderberry is found throughout the entire world, and it's like really proliferant here in Florida.
Yeah.
So the first batches of elderberry, I would go and pick, behind the neighborhood, I would go and pick the elderberries and juice them by hand.
That's crazy. So the name Living Vitality, give me, like, was it just like, oh, that was it? Like you just kind of, it just popped in your head, or was it, you kind of like, did you have other names before you kind of went that route? Like what was the kind of origin of that, out of curiosity?
Naming is the toughest part. To be honest, like you ask anybody, what's the toughest part of your company? It's like naming it. So I went, with a lot of different ideas. And at the end of the day, what the thing that really stuck out to me was that, it gave me vitality again. It gave me vitality, and I wanted to have a play of words with the TEA at the end.
Yeah.
And the living. So the living means a lot of things. Yeah, it's a living product. It's a probiotic. We don't pasteurize it. It has living bacteria, living organisms that are beneficial for the body. But also it's like, I'm living it. I'm being this vitality. I'm personifying, I'm embodying the vitality. So I'm living vitality.
No, I think it's a great name. I mean, I love it. And I love the T at the end, and like everything that it all just kind of connects. And I totally understand, because like, it sounds crazy because my brand's called Deli Fresh Threads. It's like the most common generic name. And it took me forever. And I finally was like, oh, that just makes sense, because every time I would go to a sandwich place or like a grocery store in the deli, it would be like Deli Fresh. And I was like, oh, that would make sense. So yeah, so I totally understand but it fits it fits perfectly on there. So that's why I was like kind of curious on how you do it. And I love like the logo and everything that you've kind of, how it's evolved from where it was into, kind of rebrand, because you've done the rebrand, like a logo rebrand, correct? On the cans and everything like that?
Yeah, we did a logo rebrand. This, our old logo is it's like a green leaf going sideways with the name in the middle of it. And then I rebranded to more of like a modern looking leaf with some more color behind it, and then the words underneath of it. And now we're going through a third rebrand. Yeah, which is a little scary, but we want to kind of elevate the brand a little bit more.
And I think I saw something on there that there's something else that's going to be introduced soon.
Yeah, for sure. So over the years, we learned so much about kombucha and our customers, and the direction of the market and where everybody's headed. And we always want to differentiate ourselves and be one step ahead of the game. So what we're introducing is, we have our core flavors, which are the most popular flavors that we've had for a really long time, but we're introducing functional flavors now. So delicious kombucha, but that has separate functionality. One is for focus. Another one is for adaptogens, for stress, basically stress.
Really?
Stress modulation, I would call it, being able to handle more stress.
Yeah.
Immunity, and we have like an energy blend. We have a calming blend. So we have different functionalities, but then also we have botanical-infused kombuchas, which I don't think anybody else is really doing in the country. We are working with a lot of kava bars and kratom bars, and so we're using kava, which is a very heart-opening and calming herb, a root from Southeast Pacific, and kratom leaves as well too. We've worked with Treadwell Farms for using their organic hemp, and now we're getting into coffee. So we're going to provide some probiotic coffee.
Wow. So that's definitely some evolution. So with that being said, that first thing that kind of was like, wow, that seems that there's got to be a lot more people involved in this now, in this process. So can we kind of give me an idea of, like, obviously when you started, it was just you doing all this. Mm-hmm. How many people are now are part of like this circle of, Living Vitality that's actually doing, producing, helping you produce and doing all these things?
Yeah. So my core team has changed a lot, but right now I have 2 people that work in the production, and they're able to handle everything themselves. I step in if I need to fill in, or if we have like a big brewing day. I have two people that help deliver. So we deliver twice a week on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
I'm assuming like refrigerated trucks and all that stuff, because everything's cold.
It doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Yeah, because we make our kombucha. Yeah, we keep everything in the fridge long term, but because we make it fresh, it can stay out for a couple days up to a couple days. So we actually started shipping our product as well too. So you can find it online, and that's why we switched to cans, is to be able to ship it across the country.
Nice.
Because I tried it with the bottles and they were breaking.
Yeah.
We got like less than 50% success rate on the shipping, because they would break it and they would just, UPS would just throw it away. Mm-hmm. So now with the cans, we can ship it across the country. So we're finding some really good opportunities there. And so we have 2 in the production, 2 for delivery, and I have 1 person that helps me with the sales out in the Tampa, St. Pete area.
That's
so
awesome.
I have about 5 in the core team.
That's great, man. That's great. What's been some of the things that, like, the learning curve, because you've kind of scaled the way you've scaled in the last 10 years. What are some things that you've kind of learned along the way during these past 10 years, especially as you continue increasing and growing your brand?
One thing is the quality. Our core values, we're really sticking to our core values, which is quality above cost, and being as efficient as possible, trimming the fat in the process, really focusing on our core products to carry us through, especially in times like right now, where we're finding a lot of competition in the market, both from local but also national brands, and then brands that are not truly kombucha but they call themselves probiotic or whatnot. We're seeing a lot of pressure there. So it's really important for us to keep doing what we're doing based on our values that we were founded on, which is customer satisfaction first, quality above everything else, and consistency.
No, that's great. I've seen your stuff. Give people an idea of where they can find your stuff. You're not just, because you would think kombucha is obviously a beverage, so it's it could be consumed anywhere. So therefore, I've seen it at a la carte. I've seen it at different restaurants. I've seen it it doesn't have to be a vegan restaurant or a health food restaurant. I've seen it in a variety of different places. So give people a little bit of an idea of that. And then how is that, has it gotten easier for you to kind of get your product in locations now? Especially since as you've kind of grown your, I guess your, what do we call it? Your basically your product list, or your other places that are carrying it, to be able to kind of be like, hey, I'm using, look at all the other places that are trying it. Are you interested? And here's some of my samples and things like that. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So far, the easiest way for us to get into a place is word of mouth. Having a warm introduction to somebody, they reach out to us directly. They're excited about the product. They tried it somewhere else. Those are our best customers. When I try to go out there and push products, cold calls and cold visits and whatnot, it's really tough. And I personally don't like doing it because, I can take a no, but it still kind of distracts me from other things that I want to do. But it's necessary. You got to sell it. But the best way is to keep doing, that I found the formula for me is to keep doing what I really enjoy doing, which is making the product and creating new products and, redesigning and making things better, and letting it speak for itself through other people, through word of mouth. So we've been able to gather a pretty diverse set of customers. We have, small grocery store chains. We have juice bars. We have restaurants. We have kava bars. We even have relaxation places or massage therapy places, like the Salt Room in Orlando.
That's great.
Has it, yeah. And we have a lot of different locations. So some of our main customers are Chamberlain's. We have it on tap and in some cans
That's awesome.
in all of the locations. Taco China, a la carte, 60 Vines has it, so you can get cocktails and mocktails there. We have a cat bar in downtown Orlando.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of kava bars. So a lot of our, kava bars that are basically non-alcoholic bars that serve kava and kratom. We have it in most of those locations.
That's great. No, I thought that's awesome. And then Have you now, since you have, I know you mentioned sales reps in St. Pete and stuff like that in Tampa, are you also, they're also in those locations, not just in like, just not in Orlando, but they're actually, you're kind of venturing off into other areas besides, like the Chamberlains are also in St. Pete or in like the Tampa area as well, or just Central Florida?
Chamberlains goes as far as Lakeland.
Okay.
But we have a bunch of like Kava Bar customers in Tampa, St. Pete. And then we're as far as the East Coast as well too. We're going from Flagler all the way down to Melbourne.
Oh, that's great.
We have customers throughout the area.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's a mix of restaurants and Rockledge Gardens is a really cool place. It's a plant nursery, large plant nursery, but they have a farmers market, like a permanent farmers market inside.
Nice.
And an event space. So that's a really great place for it. We have Third Wave in New Smyrna Beach, which is a great restaurant. They have it on tap as well there.
That's awesome, man. What's been your favorite? We'll go with like, give me the two sides of the coin. So what's your favorite part of like what you've accomplished? Like when you go back and you take a look, what do you think has been one of the biggest things that you feel that you've gotten out of, or accomplishments or successes that you feel from it? And then what are some of the harder parts, I guess, like that you would kind of be able to kind of share with us that you kind of experience from, as you've kind of grown?
To be honest, this business has been difficult this past year, but there's been a lot of changes in my life that have happened. And, what I realize is that when I started this business, I was basically following my heart. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't know if I was going to be making money or not, or if I have to go back into engineering. But what I realized is that it's really a tool for self-reflection. How I manage the business, how well it's doing, how diverse it is, and all that is really like a reflection of myself and my attitude and where I'm at in my mind, in my heart. Am I following, my mind? Am I following my heart? And it really gives me like immediate and constant feedback. Okay, this is going right. This is not. Where can I work to reduce my stress? Where can I work to be less reactive and more proactive and more responding rather than emotionally reacting? So it's been really like a journey of self-reflection.
Do you do it all in meditation and yoga?
I am now.
That's why I was kind of curious, because like these are all elements obviously from there, and that's why I was kind of curious. Like, what do you do for? I mean, obviously, when you run a small business like this, it's constantly obviously on your mind. But what do you do for fun? What do you do to kind of like to escape the everything else that you're doing with kombucha and just kind of the business and the growth and all of that? What do you do for fun?
Yeah, when I moved to Orlando, which was in 2012, I kind of changed my whole life. I was in the corporate world before. I didn't really know much about spirituality, or I wasn't into yoga or meditation or anything like that. But when I came here, I already started to like delve into it a little bit. Okay. And I joined the drum circle community, and it's basically a community of a lot of open-minded people from different walks of life. We have lawyers and we have hippies, and it's just a place for adults to play and self-express. And through that, you have so many diverse people with interests ranging from meditation to yoga to all sorts of therapies and different modalities of healing and how to get through all the day-to-day stressors in life. So I really got into it, and I was doing almost daily yoga. I was doing meditation. I like to meditate with other people. It kind of keeps one accountable. Or you can use life as a meditation. You could, the work you do, or like even washing dishes is a meditation. So, this past year, like I said, it's been a little bit difficult for me. I definitely felt a lot of stress, and I was pushing when everything was telling me to slow down, because I was afraid to, lose business and make less money and all this stuff. And what was actually happening is I was affecting my health. And about 4 weeks ago, I decided, you know what, I'm going to cut out all these stressors in my life. I'm just not going to worry about it, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to go with the flow and just basically let God take care of the rest. Just do my best. And it's been a huge weight off of my shoulders. I'm spending more time at home. I'm relaxing more. I'm getting things done. I'm apologizing for not showing up in certain areas, but that's fine because it's, you have to pick and choose.
Correct. Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And I think I'm always intrigued by that because we tend to judge ourselves so harshly. And usually it's like everything, even though, it's like amazing how our mind kind of works. So I'm always intrigued by like how people kind of do that, separate and be able to do that. I'm kind of curious though, because you mentioned group meditation. Because I know, meditating on your own, kind of like controlling your breath and all that stuff. Like, how do you do that with someone else? Just out of curiosity.
So, interesting enough, we've been getting approached. I've been getting approached to do a lot of hosting of events in my brewery because we have this big open space.
Yeah.
Like I said, in 2019, we rented this 3,200 square facility. We were supposed to grow into it, but because of the pandemic, it really set us back in our plans.
Yeah.
But now we have this big open space where we host everything from ecstatic dances to small drum circles and meditations and yoga and small concerts. And a lot of these things are kind of like group intentional group meditations and group expression. And it's often guided by somebody who knows about it, like some breath work and all that, like just basically controlling the breath. The breath is so important for our state of being, of our calmness and even changing our metabolic system. We can change with our breath. We can hype ourselves up or we can calm ourselves down with our breath. So been learning a lot from my peers. Yeah.
No, I love the fact that you're actually using your facility for that, because it's kind of like a perfect, there's people that do that like at breweries. They do regular breweries. They do like, yoga and a beer. So it's yoga and a kombucha, it's
exactly.
like, type of thing. I think it's like, it kind of fits hand in hand with everybody. What advice would you give someone for wanting to start something?
Get a mentor.
Okay.
Yeah. Ask a lot of questions, investigate, ask yourself, why are you doing it? Is it for money? Is it because it's a hobby you love? And whatever it is, it's okay as long as it's true. As long as you're doing it for the reasons If it's money, then that's fine too. If it's to change the world, is it to change your community? Know what your values are, and find a mentor, because that's gonna save you a lot of time and a lot of money.
Mentor in the field that you're interested in, or just mentor in general, or both?
I would say both. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be in your field.
Yeah.
It could be somebody that has experience in business, in entrepreneurship, or business owning, or business managing, or business growth, investments, whatever it is. Yeah.
You obviously mentioned your mom, how your mom, similar mindset about changing, flavors and kind of always kind of tweaking things. Have you always had an entrepreneurial spirit? Do you have, was there an influence that kind of led to that? I'm always kind of intrigued by people where it comes from.
Yeah. My mom is she's an immigrant from Ecuador, and basically raised my sister and I by herself. My father wasn't present my entire life. And she was a fighter. She basically brought herself here to the United States, and then eventually brought her own mom out of her situation in Ecuador, and made a life for herself here. And when I was born in California, 3 years later, she moved us to Brazil because there was an opportunity there. She started her business as a bikini maker.
Okay.
A seamstress, but pattern maker mostly. And she had a little bikini boutique in this small touristy town of Cabo Frio in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Beautiful, beautiful town. I mean, I had a paradise of a childhood growing up.
Yeah.
And when I was 10, we moved back to Florida, to United States in Florida, because she wanted to focus on the education. So for me, she always instilled that education is first. That's why she put me in the magnet program for engineering. And she's like, get your homework done. You know, that was top priority for me. And for her, she was always doing something to put food on the table, whether it was substitute teacher, whether it was working for the school bus organization. There's like a whole, corporation for that. She was a substitute teacher. She was, a seamstress, anything and everything. She worked at Dillard's for a while, but always had this entrepreneur spirit and always had like a side hustle and always like made the money at the right time. And we always had food on the table and always had everything. But because of that, she was very resourceful as well too. And she never let me buy any junk food or any cereal. There was never in the house. It was always something that she cooked, and it was always different. So there was never like the same thing, and it was always like, okay, what's in the fridge? Let's make it.
Yeah. No, and I think it's funny because that's also the reason why you ate cereal in your late 20s, because you didn't get to have them.
Exactly.
Because that's the reason why I love sandwiches, because my parents did kind of deprive me of that. So I totally understand. And it's very similar in that aspect that I appreciate that. I think that's awesome. Where can people follow? Where can they enjoy Living Vitality? Where, give the information. I'm going to put it in the show notes and obviously share on social, but where, if people are listening right now, as they're listening, where can they, kind of go on their phone and start either following you or kind of find out a little bit more about you?
Living Kombucha on Instagram and Facebook, Living Kombucha. We have a link pop there where it links to our YouTube channel. We have a video brewery tour, so you can really get to know our space.
To watch that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has a link to our website if you want to pick up some kombucha. And we're pretty active there. We're posting everything that we're doing, like all of our events in the brewery and also, the farmers markets that we're going to.
Daniel, thank you so much for being on. I learned a lot. I really appreciate being able to get some time to talk to you, because I know we only talked for a little bit, but I just enjoyed talking with you, and that's why I kind of selfishly wanted to have more time to be able to kind of share your story and learn more about what it is. I also wanted to be able to try some more of your kombucha. I'm super excited to be able to do that. That's our show for today. Thank you so much to Daniel from Living Vitalitea Kombucha for being on and having lunch with me. Definitely make sure to check them out. I would love to see it if you're anywhere local and you're having some. I'd love to see a selfie. Tag him, tag me. I would love to be able to see that. If you go to a store and you see it on the shelf, I will push this, even though I'm doing my outro. There is no greater feeling than to see someone be excited to take a picture and actually take that extra moment to be able to actually share, hey, look what I just saw, and it's your stuff. And there's no better feeling than that for a small business. It's because, especially if you're sharing it not just to them, but also sharing up to other people. Word of mouth, as you heard, greatest tool there is. If you enjoyed the show, definitely subscribe, tell your friends, check out other episodes. Hell, tell me which one you like the best, what questions you like, what you don't like. I want feedback, because I'm basically trying to learn from all these wonderful guests. If you want to support my brand, check out Deli Fresh Threads. And, obviously you can go to delifreshthreads.com. Thank you. Until next time, keep eating sandwiches and follow your passion. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.